afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, from wherever you're watching from, and whatever the time of the day is, good, whatever it is there. Yes, this is me speaking to you. Ayo Salami Mary is my name, and I have the privilege of talking to colleagues in the field of education. I've been saddled with the responsibility to talk to teachers on how to raise a generation of learners who will not just be reading, who will not just know how to read, but will learn. It's a huge challenge, to be able to raise learners that will not just know how to read, but will know how to learn. There are two clear things. You could have learners who can read and yet not be able to comprehend what is being read. And you could have learners who could read and comprehend, and yet what he is comprehending is not learning. And learning as a word is something you cannot easily quantify. So, for you as a teacher to be able to raise a generation of learners who will not just, be literate in reading and writing, but be people who will have open mind towards learning, is a huge challenge for us, and we must be ready to face this challenge headlong. How do we raise learners who will be able to read, to learn? Sad enough, I have to say this, that we have people with paper qualifications, people who are, I call educated illiterates. They are educated, they can read, they can write, and yet it's as if they don't know anything when they are faced with practical situations where they are supposed to put to use what they have learned. So, teaching a learner how to read and write is nothing compared to teaching a learner how to learn and actually be able to know that this person has actually learned. And you would agree with me as educator that until you are able to get feedback from your students, you can't ascertain whether learning has taken place or not. Your students may be able to write what you have written for them. They may be able to give you back verbatim what you have given to them. But that does not ascertain the fact that learning has taken place. So, it's a big question. How do we raise learners who will not just know how to write, how to read, but who will have open mind towards learning, relearning, and unlearning? And until one is able to maintain this open mind, learning may not take place. Now, how do we achieve this? As a teacher, as an educator, you must know how to arouse the interest of your learners. Being able to arouse the interest of your learners, and being able to prepare your content, your lesson plan in such a way that you leave them curious at the end of each class. Curious, curiosity makes them to want to know more about that content. If your content is planned and channeled towards that, you get learners who want to keep learning, and this will give birth to research work. When the mind is open, when the mind is curious, when they want to learn, they want to know, oh, this was where teachers stopped. Teachers said this, and I really want to know about this. They want to go all the way to check. And I put it to you that as teachers, you don't just go to class and, prepare your lesson plan, you have the notes, you want to give the notes, you spoon feed them. Spoon feeding is allowed. By the time we come, when learners will be matured enough, not only to take milk, but to swallow muzzles and also crack bones. And so you need to develop them, allow them to wibble wobble, to fall and make their mess. So if you continue spoon feeding them, they are making their mistakes by themselves on their own may not take place, and you really need this to happen. So if you as a teacher just pick the scheme of work, you just want to teach what the scheme says, you want to follow it just the way it is, without doing further research work, without getting to know what is happening this particular period, this 21st century. You will agree with me that these children are exposed to quite a lot of things that is making them to have curious mind. But because we are not engaging their curious minds enough, they are diverting these energies to the wrong path. It's a clarion call on us as educators to wake up, to explore all the technologies available to this generation. AI is there. Explore. Know what you are to do with them and know how to engage the children on this. And if you would agree with me, you can say children should come and write. They would get tired. Give them books to read. They get tired. But let's get to our phone. Let's do something on the tab. They want to see what you want to do. They want to see the outcome. They are ready. They are willing to do that. But when we as teachers, we are sitting back, we are just carrying our books. As it was in the beginning, is now and ever shall be. If we go that way, we can't achieve anything with this generation. Please, I'm appealing to us as educators. Don't join the troop of educators that produce learners who are educated illiterates with paper qualification without the ability to defend what they carry when practical situation call for it. It's not just them having all the distinctions in this world, having the first class, and yet when it's time to put to use what has been learned, when occasions, situations that will just come up, that will need them to just snap into those things they've learned, put them into practical use, and then they're looking like they've never come across these things. You would agree with me, educators, that once in a while you enter class, things you have taught, you are sure you have taught, you ask them questions, they responded. Then you enter class the next time, it's as if you never mentioned. You know why? Because you are only making them to believe. A researcher once said that when you say a thing, for you to say something to somebody and that thing will stick and it becomes permanent, you have to say that thing 16 times before it will register. But you enter class 1 week because the scheme says you take that topic 1 week, and then you teach. Even if you have the opportunity of entering the class Monday to Friday to teach the same thing, it's still not up to half of the 16 times. So you agree with me that just saying it to them will not make them learn. It will only make them write it, know how to read it, may be able to comprehend it to an extent, but may not be able to put it to practical use. And that is where engagement comes in. Engaging the children, going beyond using paper and pen. If you as a teacher does not understand the practical use of the content you are teaching, you will agree with me that engagement will be very, very difficult. So it's not just about we carrying our textbook, reading what is in the textbook, giving it to them, making them write, asking them questions. You say they have answered the question, you mark the score 4/5 or 5/5, and then you agree that they have learned. They have only been able to write, read what you have given them, and they have given it back to you verbatim. That does not establish the fact that learning has taken place. So for learning to take place, there must be practical application of the content you are bringing to the learners. So it is a taboo for any teacher in this 21st century to enter class with your textbook, with your notebook, with your lesson plan, and yet you have no practical tools or real life situations you can connect that content to. Until that is done, learning has not taken place. So, as a teacher, it's not just about we wake up, follow the same routine every day, go in there with your marker and note, write it on the board, explain it to them. They sit like donkeys, and then after you are done, you ask them questions. They give you chorus answers. You give them their notebooks. You ask them questions. They write it for you because you just released it. Short-term memory will give it back to you. But because you've not said that thing 16 times, it will not enter their long-term memory space. And that is where What I do, they say, what I do not forget. What I say or what you tell me, I may forget. What I see, I may remember partially. But what I do, for instance, if you're an English teacher, you have your students reading a literature text. You can read with them. You can explain it to them chapter by chapter, character by character. But you'll agree with me that it will stick better if you share the roles to them individually. And then you have a day where they put into, you have a stage play of the content of that literature. If that child forgets every other thing in the literature, he will not forget the role he played. And if in any situation in life you need to apply anything that has to do with that book, the role he played will keep bringing back things that happen in that playlet. Don't just go to class and teach concepts when you cannot connect it to something that is happening presently. There is no concept in learning process that does not have real life situation you can connect it to. It's because we are not doing much brain task. That's why it's as if, well, this one is abstract. We do tell ourselves that some contents are abstract. I put it to you that there is no content that is abstract. It will just need you to sit down, to make research, and ensure you get a real life situation that you can connect it to. And that's where your mental starter for every class comes in. You don't just enter class and then you write the topic on the board. You start the class you are teaching. There are things you can do that will, make the student to be asking, okay, this thing that teacher is saying, it looks like, you might want to teach drug abuse, for instance. You don't just enter class and then you write drug abuse on the board. They will read it for you. But there are things you can do at the beginning of the class that will make you, oh, so when someone does this, oh, that is drug abuse. And then when they see somebody, they say, no, you don't do that. That's drug abuse. Mental starter, arousing the interest of your students, engaging them, and leaving them with curious mind makes learning easier and faster. I'm appealing to you teachers once again. Do not join the troop of educators who will raise educated illiterates with paper qualifications. In fact, very good and recommendable paper qualifications without ability to put to use what has been learned. Don't have your students with 8 distinctions, 1 credit, and yet they can't stand to define what is economics and connect it to real life situation. He's not just defining the concept that matters. He's looking for something in the society that connects to that thing that they are defining. That's when it makes sense. We are in the age where we have pragmatic generation. In those days, they can tell you and they make you believe, and you have to believe by fire, by force. Teacher said it is, and so it is. But you see the age we are in, when you ask a child to do something, the child will ask you, why do I have to do it? In those days, you ask your teacher why, you will spell your name in reverse order. But now, when you ask a child to stand up, the child will ask you, teacher, you said I should stand up. Why do I have to stand up? And you say I should stand this way. Why is it this way? Why not this way? So if you as a teacher don't know how to connect what you want to push to them to real life situation, learning will be boring. And so they won't learn. They will just take it as some kind of jargons that somebody is trying to push down their throat, and they have to take it because mommy and daddy says they must go to school. And so they see education, they see learning as one boring stuff that they just have to do to have a certificate to be able to further and become who they want to be. It's a clarion call to us, and we need to wake up. Stop doing the same thing the same way. You can't be doing the same thing the same way and yet you want to get a different result. No. We've got to change our teaching methodologies. We've got to change our own mindset as teachers. If as a teacher you are not a teacher who is learning, relearning and unlearning, you can't raise a generation that can learn, relearn and unlearn. If you are a teacher who believes that this definition has been, that was the way I was taught in secondary school, and that's what you want to push to your children, whereas there are new things you can fuse into that definition to make it more reasonable and make it something that the children can easily connect with. If you are that old-time religion teacher, you cannot survive in the education world of today. Rather, if you're lucky to be surviving there, you are doing much harm than good to those children. Posterity will ask you. Please wake up, teachers. Let's do better. Let's raise a generation that will not just know how to read and write. You know, in those days, you know, when you have children that can say, recite A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, you know, the mothers will be dancing. Hey, my child can recite A to Z. My child can count 1 to 10. But ask the child to touch A, there is trouble. Ask the child to connect A, or let's sound R, to an object, there is trouble. So we have a generation that their brain will only work when you are connecting it to what they can see and touch and feel. So you that want to raise that generation need to do more than the way it was in those days. I'm appealing to us. God is depending on us. The government is depending on us. The parents of these children, they are depending on us. Let us do better, and God will reward our labor of love. In Jesus' name. Thanks for having me. God bless you.